Recording.
Thank you very much. Good evening. My name is Fred Chase, and I will call to order this meeting of the Rules and Procedures Committee of the Bridgewater Town Council. Today is December 12th. The time is 7 p.m. I'm joined online this evening at the moment by Councilor Brad McKinnon. We are awaiting the arrival of Councilor who are we? We're waiting for Paul to join us. We do have a quorum nonetheless, and we're joined with our town manager Blythe Robinson, who is here as an invitee, and we're going to just begin, since we do have a quorum, with the approval of minutes that we have outstanding from two prior meetings. And the first meeting is the Rules and Procedures meeting held on November 13th, 2024. And I would entertain a motion for approval.
I'll make a motion for approval.
Thank you. And I will second it. And Debbie, if you could call the roll.
Sure. Councilor McKinnon,
Yes.
Councilor Chase,
Yes.
2-0, they pass.
Thank you very much. And secondly, we have the minutes for approval. This is from the meeting of December 2nd, 2024. And I would once again entertain a motion for approval.
I'll make the motion for approval of the
Thank
December
you.
4th
And
meeting.
I'll second that. And Debbie, if you would.
Councilor McKinnon
Yes.
and Councilor Chase,
Yes.
2 in favor, 0 opposed.
Thank you so much. Our next item on the agenda calls for public comment. Debbie, is any member of the public joining us at the moment?
There's no one from the public on, just
Okay.
the four of us.
All right. I'd like to just await a few minutes to permit Councilor Murphy to join us.
I got no problem with that myself, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I appreciate. What I would recommend is that, given that Town Manager Robinson has joined us, I think specifically with respect to one particular issue, unless there's any objection from you, Brad, I will take out of order the matter of the Veterans Volunteer Services Program, and we'll begin with that.
Yeah. Do we need to make a motion and second that, or are we all set?
Actually, we don't need it for our purposes. We do it at the council level,
Yep.
but we don't have a rule that says that we have to follow a particular agenda
Yep.
in the committees. But that's fine. I just wanted to see if you had any objection to that.
Nope. Perfectly fine with me.
All right, that's great. So let me just, for the benefit of the public who will view this by YouTube, the matter that I'm speaking of is ordinance DFY 25-009, entitled Veterans Volunteer Services Program. This was introduced to the committee last week. We had an extensive discussion on the matter, and we voted last week to continue discussion to this date. And that was because we did find a number of questions that had arisen in the course of our deliberations, for which we needed clarification. And joining us last week was our town assessor, who had volunteered to, following the meeting the next day, to contact the Department of Revenue with the specific questions that we had asked her to relay for us. And she did so. And so within about a 48-hour period, we had answers to the questions that we'll touch upon tonight and consider. So that's why we needed to continue this discussion from our last session about a week ago. And ideally, we plan to conclude the discussion tonight with a a recommendation for approval for the town council. So I see Paul has not joined us yet, but I think we can begin to talk about it. There were a couple of points that in particular we discussed at some length last time, and they really revolved around concern for potential, well, certainly potential confusion, even perhaps potential abuse of the this program unless some safeguards were put into effect. So just in a nutshell, what the program would do is to provide to veterans of the town of Bridgewater the ability to apply for, in effect, an abatement. It's really a credit, but you might consider it an abatement of a certain portion of their real property taxes due to the town of Bridgewater. And it's the statute that provides for this is actually the Mass General Laws, Chapter 59, Section 5N. And the statute itself provides for a maximum per tax year limitation per applicant of $1,500, which could be reduced from the veteran's tax obligation. Now, again, there were just a couple of points that we thought should be considered as a safeguard. For example, how would this apply in the case of a veteran that has more than one property in the town? Another instance of concern to us was what if a veteran were to take advantage of this program, be approved for it, receive his tax credit, and then at another point also become eligible for the so-called SAVE program in Massachusetts, which is a very similarly structured tax credit program for seniors. And in our town, it would be available to Bridgewater residents over the age of 70, who similarly could apply for a tax credit on the basis of their age. And so our concern was, well, would it be possible for any person in the town to take advantage of each of these programs at the same time, which we thought might well be considered unfair. So we did discuss that. We discussed the possibility of a veteran who might have a property in Bridgewater, be the owner of a property in Bridgewater, become eligible under the Volunteer Services Program, and receive a tax credit, but then also be domiciled in another community. And by virtue of his or her domicile in another community, have the availability of a second, very similar tax credit in that community. So we looked at all these and we formulated questions which went to the Department of Revenue. And to give you a short story as to the findings that were relayed to us by our town assessor, she had been in touch with an attorney of the Department of Revenue, and the questions confirmed for us, or I should say the responses confirmed for us the ability of a town to put in place certain restrictions. So for example, we do have the ability to put in place a restriction on the number of properties that could be subject to this program being owned by one single veteran. So there is only one property, regardless of the number they may own. They can only seek this relief for one such property in the town of Bridgewater. In addition, it must be, we have the ability to put into effect a restriction requiring that that property be their legal domicile. be their principal residence. It's not a rental property or something like that. And as well, we have learned that it's possible for us to restrict the availability of this program to a veteran who might also be considered for relief under the SAVE program for a resident 70 years of age or older. So I have put together for circulation and discussion tonight a draft of some of these edits that we will begin to discuss. And what I had done was just the other day, I had circulated to the committee members and to the town manager a red line copy of the changes and a clean copy showing the final text as it would appear if these are in fact edits that we adopt in the committee. So I think that is effectively where we are on this process tonight. Let me just stop there to see if Brad, if you have any questions or comments or any issue as to, did I mischaracterize anything in saying
No.
that, do you think?
You've done pretty good. I did, what was it, Tuesday or Monday, you sent over the response from the DOR. I did read those, and then just, was it yesterday, today? I think it was earlier today. I got the rules and procedure, red line, and the clean sheet, and I have no problem with anything that was amended and changed. I definitely here to wait for Paul to do any discussion before I make any recommendations, but I'd have no problem recommending that for approval, how as amended.
Okay, well, thanks. I wanted to make sure we had clarified things. Let me ask Blythe if I know we had some earlier just discussion back and forth on a little bit of this, but are there any particular issues that are outstanding or things that we have not adequately dealt with yet?
No, you've been very thorough, Fred. I think everything's exactly as we discussed and as you had wanted to propose it. So I have nothing to add.
Okay, well, thank you. I did neglect to say that we have forwarded copies to our town attorney, and our hope is that he'll have an opportunity. Maybe he has already, I don't know, but to review the edits and satisfy himself as to our compliance with the law and that we've not done anything confusing or illegal.
I doubt you have, but I have a standing meeting with him first thing on Monday mornings, so I will make sure to cover it with him.
That's wonderful. I appreciate that.
Yep.
What I didn't say for the benefit of the public, which is an important thing to have mentioned, is that what the program does to better characterize it for people who aren't familiar with it, it permits a veteran in the town of Bridgewater to provide volunteer services to the town in exchange for their tax credit by virtue of having been a honorably discharged veteran. So it's really a very streamlined kind of act. It's very simple in what it attempts to do, and I think that we were gratified to hear that we could put in place the kinds of safeguards that we thought would be important to consider. In doing that, and I think that Councilor Murphy, I think, has joined us now.
Yeah.
Councilor Murphy had pointed out at our last session that he was aware that the town of Kingston had similarly recently opted into this program. And so he was aware of what they had done. I have taken a look at what they put together for their particular case. And in fact, I thought that what they presented on their town website is really very well done. I thought it was very clear and very comprehensive. They talked very specifically about rules, which in many cases are actually very similar to what we're contemplating here. So I did have a chance to take a look at that. I think they made a slight variation in the maximum amount of a credit that would be available to a veteran in that town of, I think they indicated $1,000. But there was a lot of good guidance there available to the public of the town of Kingston. And so it was helpful for me to kind of weigh that as we put together our own draft. So, so Paul, you've joined us, and we had just kind of laid out a sort of basic introduction to this for the benefit of anyone who wasn't familiar, who's going to view this video in the future. There's no member of the public who has joined us tonight, and so we can begin to talk about it more to whatever extent we need, frankly. So, do you have at this point any particular comments or questions, or have you had an opportunity to review what I circulated?
I have, yes. Yeah, no additional comments, Councilor Chase. I did see what you have circulated, and I do agree with that.
Okay. Well, that's great. I appreciate that. I tried my very best to make it as clear and plain as possible, and yet to cover the bases that we talked about. So I'm happy that you found favor with it. At this point, if there are no other questions or concerns, I would entertain a motion.
Yeah, no, as I said before, you definitely made it clean and cut right to the point for every issue that we did have in the last meeting. So I'd entertain a motion to recommend for approval.
Okay.
And I'll second.
Well, thank you. So we have a motion and a second. And Debbie, if you would kindly do a roll call for us.
Fred, is this the motion to accept the amendments?
Well, I'm sorry. Thank you, Debbie.
Yeah.
I should have been more clear about that. All right. So Brad, you made the motion. Is this a motion to accept the edits?
The clean draft, yes, as
Okay.
amended.
Very good. All right. Then if we could have a roll call vote on that.
Sure. Councilor Murphy,
Yes.
Councilor McKinnon,
Yes,
and Councilor Chase.
Yes.
3 in favor, 0 opposed.
Okay, thank you. And if we could further have I would entertain a motion for a recommendation of approval to the town council.
I'll make a motion to recommend for approval to the town council.
Alrighty, thank you.
I'll second.
And thank you. And Paul has seconded. I appreciate that. And Debbie, once again, if we could have a vote.
Sure. Councilor McKinnon,
Yes,
Councilor Murphy,
Yes.
and Councilor Chase.
Yes.
3 in favor, 0 opposed.
Okay. All right. Thank you. That actually dispenses with the volunteer services ordinance. And I have a lot of paperwork to just shuffle through now that that's moved on our agenda past that item. Okay. So we had taken that out of order. So the next item for legislation is proposed ordinance DFY 25-008, proposed amendment to Part 2 Administrative Code, Chapter 1, Article 3, Section 1B2. Once I find it again. And that is a proposed ordinance brought forward by President Perry. I'll read the text of it, which is very brief. Ordered that the town council assembled votes to amend Administrative Code, Chapter 1, Article 2, Section 1B2 as follows. Paragraph B, multiple member bodies and ad hoc committees. And the paragraph in which a change is proposed by President Perry reads as follows. The Bridgewater Town Council may from time to time, based upon passage by a majority vote of its membership, establish ad hoc committees to assist the town council in carrying out the council's responsibilities. Ad hoc committees shall be limited to a particular subject area and subject only in that capacity for a specified period of time. Appointments to these ad hoc committees shall be made by the town council president, subject to ratification by the town council. The change that is proposed in this amendment is simply to provide for these ad hoc committees to be appointments to these ad hoc committees to be made by the town council president. As the code currently stands, the appointments to these ad hoc committees would be made by the town manager. So that is the full scope of the proposed change to this administrative code section. Now, I would point out that just by virtue of substitution of the president of the council for the town manager, as is proposed here, it really in no way minimizes the authority of the town manager to form and to populate ad hoc committees, which he or she always has the power to do under the charter with respect to whatever matter, whatever kind of issue they feel that it's necessary to form a committee to review and study, for example. Now that in that case, it might be an ad hoc committee comprised of department heads or other staff members of the town government, or conceivably citizens as well. It could be composed of any combination of those people. So a town manager still has the ability to establish an ad hoc committee. This specifically addresses an ad hoc committee of the council, okay? And it is really only intended to put the council itself in charge of its own ad hoc committees. So it's, in my own opinion, I think it makes sense for this to be considered by us. I can understand why Councilor Perry has brought this forward. I think that it otherwise is entirely consistent with what our charter intends to do, which is really, if you think about it in many ways, effectively almost establishing a kind of governmental authority, shared governmental authority, like the separation of powers that we see on the federal level. The executive, being in this case the town manager, has his or her own authority to act in a certain way, and so too, with respect to council matters specifically, the town council president has the ability to populate and appoint members of the council to an ad hoc committee. So the only change is really that with respect to ad hoc committees of the town council, which frankly are, they are somewhat rare. We that I can recall have only had 2 ad hoc committees that have been part of our council structure during my period of tenure on the council. But nonetheless, they could serve an important role, and that's really all I have to say about it. But I'd like to hear any thoughts or questions, comments by the councilors.
So I don't have many problems. I really don't have any problems with this. I just do have a question. This would only be, we're only talking about, like, for example, what we have now, the Downtown Revitalization Committee and the Gambling Committee or Gaming Committee, whatever one that is. This wouldn't be for, say, the town manager search, right? That would still be on the town manager itself to pick that. Or
That
is
is
that
a
considered
question
the council?
I've considered, and I'm not really sure how I come out on that. I don't know. Blythe, I don't know if this is something you've given thought to.
Yeah.
Would you like to comment? Please feel free.
I think for me, having I can appreciate why he brought this forward, because for the town manager search committee, it was a little awkward.
Yeah.
To suggest a council member to be, serving on something that was gonna, directly affect the role. So I can understand that perspective. I guess the only thing I would say is that because the town manager appoints so many other roles, either appoints them directly or appoints them with your approval, it seems like we're just carving this out for one particular awkward situation rather than the way we do it for just about everything else. Because if you're going to ratify the Downtown Revitalization Committee, how is that different? So I'm not really sure what the right outcome is here. But I do recognize that in the particular situation we were just faced with after the town manager left, that's why this has come. I think that's why this has come forward.
Yeah.
So,
I appreciate that. Thank you, Blake.
yeah.
And I can see, I guess I can look at it both ways. But I do think you're right. I think that the particular instance of an ad hoc committee to select a new town manager, having been populated by the exiting town manager, did give rise to some confusion, maybe some concern. So I think that naturally that really is an exception. If ad hoc committees themselves on the council level are relatively rare, that is exceedingly rare, that we should have a committee to for the purpose of selecting a new town manager. Something, as you know, we haven't needed to contend with for about a dozen years. So I think that overall, when we think about ad hoc committees of the council, it does make sense for the town council president to be able to populate those committees with appointees from the membership of the council. And I say that because if the simple example I look at is that the town council president can appoint counselors to all of the other committees of the town council, standing committees. And if the town council president can appoint people to standing committees of the council, why can he or she not also appoint council members to an ad hoc committee? So I guess, I look at it as an appropriate, kind of division of responsibility here. Again, noting that the town manager can always make appointments to any town committees, boards and commissions, and that's an important function of the town manager's office. Whereas, generally speaking, it would be the town council president who's probably best able to determine from among the council members who is best able to fill a particular position in a council, who has maybe the greatest time availability, or certainly someone if they have difficulty with time availability, or just willingness to serve. So the town council president is going to be closer to that and be able to determine that himself. Any other comments or questions at all?
I'm good.
No. Well, seeing none, I would welcome a motion for approval if that is to your liking.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve for recommendation to the town council.
Okay. All right. Thank
I
you.
would second.
And Paul has seconded that. Okay. Well, if we could have a vote, Debbie, I would appreciate it.
Sure. Counselor Chase,
Yes.
Counselor Murphy,
Yes.
and Counselor McKinnon.
Yes.
3 in favor, 0 opposed.
All right. Well, thank you very much. We can move on to item C. Proposed ordinance DFY 25-010, proposed amendment to Chapter 157, Article 2, Section 1. This is the proposed amendment to the flag raising ordinance that was brought forward by Councilors McGrath and Lindy, which would add a provision to the existing ordinance that would require that the POW MIA flag be flown together with the US flag at any time that a flag is being flown pursuant to the ordinance, whereby a citizen can seek approval for the flying of another flag. Now, if you've had an opportunity to look at the agenda for our next council meeting on Tuesday, you would see that there is in fact a further action being introduced at that time, which calls for, it's an order that would, if approved by the council, would call for the town manager to provide for an additional flagpole to be placed before the fountain on the Academy building grounds, and to be joined by an adjacent flagpole being the existing flagpole, which would be moved to that location. And one flagpole would be reserved exclusively for the permanent display of the US flag and the POW MIA flag. The other flagpole, according to the proposed order, would provide for the permanent display of the town of Bridgewater flag, and at such times as the council approves a citizen application pursuant to our flag raising ordinance, another flag would fly beneath the town of Bridgewater flag. Now, so that is all, of course, for debate during the next upcoming council session on Tuesday. I bring that up only because if in fact the council finds that proposed order favorable and votes to take that action, it really negates the need for the change that was proposed to the existing ordinance. Now, we can do whatever the committee feels appropriate. And I'm actually sorry to see that neither of the sponsors are here joining us tonight, but we can consider adopting the proposed amendment to the ordinance. And then let us suppose that the council does approve the order for a second flagpole. Well, then at the council level, we simply wouldn't take up the matter of the proposed amendment to the ordinance. Or we could simply vote to continue the proposed amendment to the ordinance to a future meeting, by which point some resolution will have taken place with respect to the order that we're going to consider on Tuesday. So it really doesn't matter. My only concern is that we don't, needlessly make amendments to the ordinance, because if in fact the order is approved on Tuesday, we probably will need to amend the ordinance in any event to provide for things like the fact that a second flagpole will be contemplated. And we'd have to distinguish the two and talk about that so that it's clear what was intended. So I leave it open for any comments or questions on this matter.
Yeah, so I did look at the agenda this morning. The number one thing I did appreciate was seeing both your name and Mary's name as those who introduced it. I'm going to be honest here. I think the easiest thing for us to do would probably just be table this and see what happens at the first reading. I do believe you and Mary's idea should go through. I mean, I'm in full support of it. I've been saying we should look into a second poll for a while now. So definitely like to hear Paul's input, but I do think this might just be easier to get tabled here, in my opinion, because I don't think you and Mary's ordinance will get shut down in first reading or second reading. I mean, it seems fair for everyone, and that's what we were trying to do this whole time.
Okay, Paul, do you have thoughts on that too?
Yeah, Councilor Chase, I would agree with Councilor McKinnon's comments. I think it would be good to continue this order. I would suggest to continue it just pending that we hear the future order that's coming up on the town council meeting, and then perhaps revisit this at a later date if necessary. But I would choose to continue just to not take it off our plate, but to have it there if need be in the future.
Okay, thank you. And Councilor McKinnon, I think you actually mentioned table, but is it really your intention to continue this then?
We could continue it too. Like I said, I do think you and Mary's ordinance should go through without a problem, and I hope it does, to be honest with you. But I'd make an motion to continue this to a later date.
Okay, that's fine. So that's the motion. And Paul, am I correct? You second that motion?
Yes, I would second the continue.
Okay. And Debbie, if we could have a vote on continuing this matter to another date?
Sure. Councilor McKinnon,
Yes.
Councilor Murphy,
Yes.
and Councilor Chase.
Yes.
3 in favor, 0 opposed.
Thank you. I think that's a good resolution because let's suppose the council does not contemplate does not approve the order. We'd still be faced with the need to consider this. So I think that's a good result. And what do we have remaining? We have a
The
proposed
truck exclusion.
That's right, the truck exclusion. It's ordinance DFY 25-011, general ordinance amend chapter 300, article 2, truck exclusions. And let me just, much too much paper here tonight for one meeting. Here we are. So this was brought forward by Councilor Lindy. And let me ask, please, if I could, since we have you here, Blythe, I don't know if you have any particular comments as to how this was arrived at, or any comments or questions yourself, but please feel free to join.
It's been long in the making. It was requested, I'm not sure if by East Bridgewater or by us. I think it's East Bridgewater, might be West. And it has to go through a rather strict process before the Department of Transportation will approve it. But that came down to us recently. And so both towns have to actually adopt it. So the selectmen in that town have already done that. And so we need to take the same action so that the appropriate signage can be posted. And then once it is all set, after that point, that's when the police departments of each community could enforce it. They can't enforce it until it's been accepted by both parties. So this is the final step in the process.
Okay, very good. It certainly seemed appropriate to me, and I was frankly happy to see that it had reached us at this point. I would assume that once the action is finalized, there will be appropriate signage to put in place.
Yes.
Well, I think it's a good. I think it's actually a very good ordinance. I think that it's something, unfortunately, that I think many people in town think that, you know, their particular street is suitable for a truck exclusion, and that's just not always the case for reasons that you've actually illuminated, Blythe. It is a much more complicated matter than, you know, simply deciding to put a sign in place saying no heavy trucking or something like that.
Because you have to give trucks, you have to give them enough, you know, the ability to go a different route. Just because you don't want it on one street doesn't mean you can't ban them all together. And that's why I think sometimes people might like to see. But that's not how the world works. So trucks of various kinds, you know, trucks come in all sizes. You know, you could almost consider a school bus a truck. It's not, of course, but in terms of heaviness and impact on a neighborhood, they certainly can, but there's also business that needs to be done, so.
That's right. Well, I agree, and I thank you very much for your comments. I have no other comment, but I would welcome any remarks from Brad or Paul.
Got myself muted again. I gotta stop doing that. So I have no problem with this. I did read it. I see the language is in there already for, say, a development, or someone works on a house, or they're redoing their roof and they need a roof delivery. I see all that's already in place. So as Blythe said, this has been in the making for a while. And I mean, the one concern I would have is maybe more trucks will be driving through the center, but that's what the center of town is for when you have all those state roads there, you know. So no concerns for me.
Okay, oh, very good. And Paul?
Nothing additional for me either. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Well, I would entertain a motion for recommendation to the council.
I'll second that.
Okay. I guess I made a motion.
I thought you made the motion. I'm sorry. I'll make the motion to recommend to the
All right,
council.
very good.
I can second.
And Paul, you will second it. Good. We're in good shape. And Debbie, if you would kindly have a vote.
Of course, Counselor Murphy,
Yes.
Counselor McKinnon,
Yes.
and Counselor Chase.
Yes,
3 in favor, 0 opposed.
thank you very much. I see that we have reached the end of our agenda. So we have no further business. And I definitely want to thank everyone in attendance. Thank you very much, Blythe, for taking time this evening to join us. We appreciate that, and your comments have been very helpful. And I thank both of the counselors for a very productive and I think very expedient meeting. I think we discharged things very well. It's always good to have a meeting that you can walk away from in within the course of an hour. So I would entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Very good. Is there a second?
Come on, Paul.
TikTok.
Just wanted to keep you in suspense, but I'll second.
You were giving me an opportunity?
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll take advantage of that. Then I will second that. And Debbie, if you could, for one final time, please call the roll.
Sure, Counselor McKinnon,
Yes.
Counselor Murphy,
Yes.
and Counselor Chase.
Yes.
3 in favor, 0 opposed.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. And have a great evening.
Have a good night. Enjoy
Good
your
night.
weekend, guys.
Good night.
Thank you. Bye-bye now.